For a lot of people, retirement is a big financial unknown. People have questions like, do I have enough super? Am I doing enough? Am I too late? What if I get there and then I just hate it? Well, today's guest has built a career helping people answer those big unknowns. James Wrigley is a Melbourne-based financial advisor, part owner of First Financial, and one of the best-known good guys in the industry. You might have even seen him on TikTok or Instagram, where more than 200,000 people tune in for his finance videos. And now he's written a book, Retire Life Ready. It's a practical guide to building wealth and shaping a retirement that actually feels good. That's today on Money and a Good Life. My name's Stephanie Coombs, and I'm here with my co-host, the one and only Ryan Watson. Hello, Ryan.
Hi, Steph. How are you? The one and only?
The one and only, I assume.
Yeah, okay.
You don't have a twin out there or something, do you?
Not that I know of.
Thank God. Now, Ryan, you know James pretty well, so how about you do the introduction this time?
Sure.
Let's mix it up. Come
So
on.
today, as you've touched on, Steph, we've got James Wrigley on our podcast today. James and I go back quite a ways. Been an advisor, initially reached out to him maybe 4 or 5 years ago, have genuinely always admired the way he goes about advice, professionalism, puts the client first. So I am absolutely chuffed to have him on with us today. And you can add author to his title as well. So the book, Retire Life Ready. Welcome, James.
Thank you for having me.
Well done on writing your first book and getting out there. What was that process like?
It kind of starts and stops is the way that I've described it. Like from signing the contract to say, okay, you're going to write the book, that was this kind of mad rush to meet a particular deadline. But in the end, I got there. And then it's the editing and it's, okay, we need this by Monday. And so this mad rush of trying to edit the whole book within the space of about a week or so whilst do a day job. And then you get onto the PR and the promotion of it, posted on social media and podcasts and interviews and TV.
And speaking of the PR, James, I'm seeing you everywhere. I'm not on TikTok, but I imagine.
I had no idea what this whole book world was like, but the pre-orders really matter. They said to me, look, if you can do 200 or 300 pre-orders, that'd be amazing. No one does 1,000 pre-orders, and we did over 3,000 pre-orders before it went live. Then so many more other places were interested in me having a chat with me because it had done so many pre-orders.
I've got to ask, James, of the 3,000, how many did you buy personally as Christmas presents?
So I bought 100 copies.
Full disclosure, I love
it.
But
they don't count in all of those.
All
of those. And I didn't tell my wife that I'd ordered all of these copies of the book, and she was home when it got delivered. And she sends me this message. She's like, some guys just dropped off like 5 boxes of your book. What the hell are you?
I was like, I wonder what that's about. That's so weird.
What do you need 5 copies of your own book for?
Well, that shows obviously that there's an appetite for this topic about retiring, right? Like, I mean, if you're getting that many pre-orders and that's usually unheard of, why is there not more information out there about retiring well?
There's a fair bit of information out there if you go searching for it. Like, I'm not the first person that's written a book about retirement. The thing is, I enjoy it. And like, I did it for so long before there was any financial reward whatsoever. From when I was first doing posts on LinkedIn, I think it was probably up to 8 or 9 years ago. Doing the videos, it's a bit of a creative outlet for me. I can edit things, I can look up these apps, and I can, mess around with all of that type of stuff.
What's really resonating on there?
Tax, always. Inheritance,
really?
Always. is a big one. And I think that kind of just goes to the demographics. Like, there's all of this literature written about the wealth transfer that we're in the very early stages of. And there's so many people out there that appreciate, they're 60-something or 70-something, and they've got their house and they've got their bit of super and whatnot, and that's eventually going to end up with their kids. And so they're wanting to know some answers. So that stuff always does really well.
I think you and I both agree, 9 out of 10 people come in and they think it's about superannuation or investing.
Yeah.
But what are the real conversations, James?
Yeah, you park that to the side, and sometimes, depending on where the client's starting the conversation, you might also kind of pull them up and say, look, it's all important. Your numbers are important, but let's just push that to the side. Like, where are you at today? What are you stuck on? Why are you even here in the first place? Why did you reach out? And then you can kind of go through a bit of a conversation of, well, what do you really want life to look like? It's, say you were 10 years down the track. What do you want to have had happen? Where do you want to be? What does this life look like for you? Tell me about your kids. What are they going to be up to? And so you can have a whole hour or more conversation with them before you go anywhere near how much do you have in superannuation and what is your income. A lot of people will come in, whether it's in the initial phone call or that initial meeting, they'll take a lot of pride in telling me how much money they have. I've got $5 million or $10 million. My net worth is all there is. And say, that's nice, but how much of that is tied up in your own home? If your net worth is $5 million and 4.5 of that is tied up in your own home, congratulations, you're still going to work on Monday. You don't have enough money to retire on. So some people don't understand that until we start to explain it. But we want to start the conversation with, well, what do you want life to actually look like? Where do you want to live? Who do you want to surround yourself with? Because health permitting, for most people, in retirement's probably going to be a 30-year journey. Health medication and so forth is increasing, people living longer, all the rest of it. So putting aside kind of one-off health events, it's a pretty long time. If someone's retiring around age 60, that's years and years and years. And so you want to make sure you've got something to stimulate your mind, a reason to get out of bed, some people that you want to hang around with and spend some time with. Let's work on that. And then, what do the numbers need to look like to help support that?
What do people get wrong in retirement, do you think?
That first point about hanging too much value on the house that people live in. So, some people, as I said, they come in and say, I'm worth however many millions I'm worth. But a lot of that's tied up in the value of their own home. You need somewhere to live. And then it's not then paying enough attention to the other assets, their super, their investment property, their savings, their shares, whatever it might be. It's these other assets that are ultimately going to allow you to live that retirement life. Sometimes you're prompting people to say, you know what, you can actually retire if only you would downsize. And some people, they don't even think of that. Some people say, oh, that's fantastic, I'm actually going to do it. Yep. And then there's other conversations where I've said, no, I absolutely cannot, because my kids come over and my grandkids come over and I need this massive house for the once a month when there's 10 people in here, but otherwise it's just my wife and I rattling around in this massive house. And they place so much importance on keeping that home. Fine, you then need to work more and we need to do some other planning to be able to fund your retirement.
I think that's such a common story though, right? And the family home has so much emotion too. That's the difficult thing. Unmarrying yourself from the place where your kids grew up and where you have all these happy memories.
Like I was going to say, you even imagine, the measurements of the kids are on the kitchen wall and there's all those, where everything happened.
You're not always making rational decisions, right? I'm sure you come across that all the time. They're not always rational decisions.
And that's the thing with financial advice. And that's why we want to start the conversation with, well, what do you actually want to do? What's important to you? Put aside the numbers for a moment. And if staying in that home because of the family memories and all the rest of it are really important to you, great. Let's then solve for you staying in that home versus selling it and buying something cheaper if that was on the cards for some people.
Have you got a practical example for us around how you've helped a client reframe what retirement looks like for them?
Some people that come in and they've done whatever they've done in their working life and they've paid off their house and they've got their super and they've got whatever. We can have this conversation with them to say, you've got enough, like you've done enough, you can retire. You're telling me you want to retire. But then they're also in a second breath saying, actually, no, we want to keep going. We want to do more. We want to do more. So, well, why?
Yeah. Which one is it?
Yeah. And one of the responses that came back was, well, that had enough money to essentially just replace their income from work. So you can keep living however you're living today. You can continue to do that in retirement. Fantastic. That's an amazing retirement for you. But then the follow-up comment was like, I'd always thought that if I had that much more money, then I would do all of these extra things. Yeah. And so they're kind of hanging on, and then in their late 60s now, they're kind of hanging on to this point in time when I'm going to have all of this extra money so that I can do all of these extra things. But then when you follow up and say, well, is there something that you've missed out on? No, I haven't not done something. It's tough.
Do you often come across people who could have retired sooner than they thought?
Yeah, you do get some people that just don't appreciate how strong a financial position that they're in. And money is one of these things that people don't tend to talk about too much, with their friends and family and so forth. But when they're in a meeting with us and the door shuts, all of a sudden they just start spilling their guts out in terms of their finances. And so you do come across people when they can retire earlier, but they need to just make sure that they're ready. The finances are one part of it. Kind of then working on their terms. I said, yeah, actually, we've got this 6-week trip to Europe planned, but I'll come back so long as I can have my 6 weeks off. And then the employer says, yeah, no worries, we'll pay you a couple of days a week to do the work, and then when you come back you work another couple of days a week thereafter.
I'm sure you do something similar as well, James, but for us at Tribeca, that's why we like to talk about financial retirement, so it doesn't seem so finite.
So by that you mean financial retirement is you no longer have to work.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
so
but you can.
So now what would you really like to do? But that can be quite scary, because if you've been in routine for 25, 30, 35 years, then what next? And without talking to potentially financial retirement, it can seem like a bit of a cliff. But if people are working with the likes of James or people with us, at Tribeca, then they can, if they've got a 10-year window or whatever they're talking about up to retirement, then they can psychologically prepare for it as well as financially prepare for it through good strategy.
Have you guys found that there's a bit of a uptake in the idea of retiring early? Because online there's a lot of a movement. I think it's the FIRE movement, which is financially independent, retire early. So far as I can see, a lot of that involves flogging yourself for 20 years.
It's doing absolutely nothing, spending absolutely nothing to build up a lot. And there's different people. There's some YouTubers and things that are at the other end of that, this FIRE journey. And there's a few of them that are getting to a point of say, well, I'm bored now. Like, what am I going to do?
Okay.
I'm 30-something, I'm 40-something. I can afford to retire. I've got plenty of money. But then they're getting bored. A lot of 40-something-year-olds that we're talking to, they can't get their head around the idea of not working yet. They're still too young. Whether you call it an early retirement, work becomes optional. They might choose to work because they love what they do, or they go and do something else, but they're not working because they need the money anymore.
People these days will have maybe 2, 3, 4 phases of a career. So then what do they want it to be? Does it naturally go to the executive level? Is it leadership? Is it charitable as well? As financial advisors, we've got to a point where we can help people plan, but then we can bring in some real experts who can have other conversations, ask key questions and like as well. So yes, as financial advisors like James Wood, we can introduce to accountants, estate planners, mortgage brokers, but we find this other suite of people who sit in this wellbeing space as well, and clients are really gravitating to that.
I've got a lot of friends. What they're trying to work out is how can I physically work as little as possible so I can do the things that matter to me. And I feel like that's a real sort of movement in the zeitgeist at the moment, that the idea of you slog away at a job 8 hours a day and then you reap the rewards of that, which is you have a nice house or whatever. That status quo has changed a bit. And so it's kind of moving, at least in my circles, the other way. It's like, well, I'm not going to win that game. So how do I win it differently?
The whole retirement system in Australia, at least for the moment, is primarily built on you owning your own home and having some money to be able to support yourself. There is this swell of people that are kind of opting out of that norm as you're explaining. Work a little bit less, maybe decide that they don't want to own a home and they want to bounce around and travel and have the freedom of rent and so forth. Only time's going to tell what does that actually then mean for these people 20, 30 years down the track. Does the retirement system in Australia change to keep up with that? Who knows? How the system works at the moment, and then how do you use that system to your best advantage over time?
There's choices. We exchange time for money, and that's the most important commodity, and more people are choosing time. Am I willing to maybe take a $25,000 or $30,000 or $50,000 less salary? I give half of that to the tax person anyway. What's really important to me in life? And I think, as James touched on, then if people choose to rent and travel and do other things, the most important thing that we'd agree on is they have a plan in place. It's not based on wishful thinking or she'll be right down the track.
Yeah. But as the system stands now at the moment, this is a book for someone who is thinking seriously about retirement and is in that age group.
There's bits in there for everyone. People have been buying it for their 20-year-old kids. They're not retiring anytime soon. But to just give them a bit of an understanding of how does the system work. The sweet spot for the book is probably that kind of 40 plus. They've got a house, whether they've got a mortgage or whatnot, and they're kind of just starting to look at, okay, there's a bit of a timeline here. I can see the next 15 to 20 years. What are the things that I can be doing now so that I don't have to be doing this forever? And then it goes on to, the people in their 50s and 60s. There's some comments in there about the aged care system and so forth.
Have you managed to steer someone towards a good retirement when they maybe left it too late?
For some clients, they come in and it is a case of, hey, James, I retired yesterday. This is what I've got. Help me make best use of what I've got. Fortunately, for a lot of those people, you can find a way through it. Sometimes it's you're telling them, you can have the retirement of your dreams. And other times you're saying to them, look, it's not quite the retirement of your dreams, but hey, we can help you make best use of what's here and the age pension system or whatever else is available.
It'll be far from a nightmare. It might not be the dream, but it's far from a nightmare.
That's it. You just need the direction. And so then, okay, I'm heading in this direction. So that means, I need to put X into my mortgage. I should probably add a little bit more to my super. I should do these things. You go down the list and tick them off.
I think as well, making this active and trying to set in mind, like I think for a lot of people, the idea of retirement feels boring because it feels like admin.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of imagination. It's like, oh, how much money am I going to have? Oh, that means looking at bank accounts. But actually, it's an imaginative journey to what do you want to do?
That's it.
That's kind of fun. Like, that's exciting.
It's what are you retiring to? And so then, you need some resources to be able to support that. Where I want to live and who I want to surround myself with. What do I want to do? What am I aspiring to? What am I retiring to? And then the numbers are a little less boring.
Have you ever had any weird people, like any weird things that people are retiring to, any out of the box?
I had a meeting with someone just last week. They did a round the world cruise for a year.
Okay.
Cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they could afford it. They were in a really great financial position, and they did all the activities. They said we weren't going to skimp on anything.
Sitting on a cruise ship for 9 months sounds like hell to me.
But
it's for everyone different.
But Steph, at this
different.
stage of your life, it does.
I think it's maybe more of an American thing, but there's some elderly, like 80s, quite elderly people, where instead of going into nursing homes and retirement villages and these kind of things, they sell up the family home and they just go on the cruise ship for the rest of their life.
You can see the logic in it though, right?
Someone makes their bed, someone prepares their dinner, someone does their washing, there's a hospital on board.
You go to dinner, you speak to someone new each night, you create these friends and there's interesting stories. And
they stay on, but everyone else changes over every couple of weeks. And so
I also like the idea that no one can drop the grandkids off at you.
Yeah.
It's like no one's going to be like, oh, can you look after this? Like, nope, sorry, I'm in Hawaii.
That's
and it's like, if you can get them to Fiji in a week's time, sure, see you then. But like, it's such a broad spectrum, right, of what makes people happy.
It is. For some, it's just staying at home and not doing a whole lot. And so for someone else looking in, that looks incredibly boring. And then for others, it's like the cruise. There's some people that we talk to, like, I couldn't possibly think of anything worse to go and do a cruise.
And, literally by the cover, James, so retire life ready. So find what your life ready is.
I would have thought of retirement as a cookie cutter exercise, but it's not. It's so
For some people, it's 5 rounds of golf, or they play, some people go, absolutely not.
Can you pick who's going to thrive in retirement and who isn't going to thrive in retirement?
You can get a sense of the people that are ready for it.
Yeah.
And there's numerous times when I've spoken to people, they're ready on paper financially, but you'll have it as part of the conversation and say, you're not ready. You're not ready to give up work. We might still work with them and we'll do some planning and so forth, but they get 6-12 months down the track and then maybe they're ready. Maybe it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the track, but you can see in those early conversations, you can see if someone's actually ready to give it up or not.
It's such a huge topic. Congratulations, James, on your book. You've got a lot of information to cram in there. If people would like to buy Retire Life Ready, where will they find it?
All bookshops. Big W's got it, all the online retailers.
And what about your socials? Where can people find you?
So just search my name, James Wrigley, Wrigley, on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. I'm on all of these different places.
Beautiful. James, thank you so much for your time. And if you enjoyed this episode, do make sure you give Money and a Good Life a follow wherever you're listening now so you never miss an episode. And we will see you next time.